The Celebrations event has concluded with the end of the Frostbite season, and that means there are two new light tanks to pick up. One for Cold War and one for World War II. Today we're looking at the World War II Tier 7 American Premium Light Tank, the M42 Duster, with its twin 40mm guns. This gun setup is actually very interesting, honestly first of its kind. It deals 35 damage per shell with 8 in the clip. The intro clip is a quarter of a second at 0.25, meaning it takes 2 seconds to dish out 280 damage from the clip. But where it gets interesting is the reload time. It's only 2 seconds base, meaning you shoot for 2 seconds, go on a 2-second break before dishing out another 8 rounds. You virtually have no reload. Especially since with food rations, rapid loading, and porn leader, you can get that reload down even further. Not by much, mind you, since it's already so low, but it's still something you can do. This tank, with its 2 seconds base reload between clips, has an absurd 4,480 DPM for a Tier 7 light tank. This DPM would be overpowered on more standard autoloaders, because usually an autoloader has a long period of reload time that takes up most of that minute in their DPM calculation. So if a normal autoloader had this DPM, it'd be concerning, as it would mean their burst potential is so strong that their DPM value could reach these limits in the first place despite their long reloads. And there are two tanks that fit that absurdness with the Vigilante and the Night Stalker, both having absurd DPM values for standard reload values, making them overpowered, but the Duster here has a 2-second reload and 280 clip potential. It only reaches that high DPM value from sheer output in that minute, which is just relentless, really. Of course, that's if they're penning you. These are 40mm guns at Tier 7, and with its gun setup, you'd think it'd have the same downside as the Vigilante with very little pen. And while it does have the lowest pen of any Tier 7 light tank, and no premium rounds, its AP rounds still get 120mm of penetration. That's still a decent amount at Tier 7, that you won't feel too hindered by it, except for being bottom tiered. At least I didn't. And don't worry, this tank does not have chip damage, so you have to be penned to take damage from a Duster. Its HE does 50 damage for a 400 damage clip, but only 26mm of pen, so I wouldn't really bother, as even against the lightest of armor, you'll struggle to get those to pen consistently enough to make it worth swapping to, really. For Tier 7, the shell speed is pretty good too, with both rounds firing at 875 meters per second. As for its gun handling though, it's pretty solid, with 1.7 seconds of aim time and 0.28 base accuracy. The gun depression is where you're going to find the most trouble. It only has 3 degrees of gun depression, making working ridges quite difficult, but hey, it does have 85 degrees of elevation to take down those planes, right? This is a light tank though, so it will rarely bother you in comparison to other tank playstyles that value gun depression much more than light tanks do. But it will occasionally screw you even in circling maneuvers on some bumpy terrain. It's not like if it had any more though, you could work ridges anyway, as you're a light tank, so your armor is pretty paper thin. While the survivability of a light tank is easily overlooked, there is something about this tank worth mentioning still in this section. It's 920 hit points. This is the second highest of all Tier 7 lights, with the only one having more being the Aufklärung's Panzer Panther, and all others having less than 900. This helps you to be slightly more aggressive to get those clip dumps in, especially against other light tanks, taking them out quickly while they take longer to take you out. Having more HP is always a beneficial aspect to any tank, and to one that takes a bit to get its damage going is really nice to have. It's quite fast too, something that should be expected from light tanks, but I for one was not expecting this speed. It's the fastest Tier 7 light tank, even faster than the WWII tank, at 72.4 kilometers an hour top speed. With its 500 horsepower too, it gets a very nice 22.12 powder weight ratio, and being a bulldog chassis at heart, it's got the great American traverse speeds at 56 degrees a second. These values are shared with the other tank that shares its hull, which is the Tier 6 Chinese Type 64, which has the same modified bulldog chassis, so I can see where they pulled the stats from at least. This does mean you can run from other lights, or better yet, chase them down, since you have no need to run from them with your relentless gun and better HP values. It makes this tank quite a potent anti-light light tank, which would make you think it suffers in its spotting capabilities since they are good at taking out the lights, but no, it's got the good average 390 meters base view range, which is what most of the good Tier 7 lights have, Only 2 lights at this tier get 400 meters, so thankfully this wasn't one of them. Its camo isn't absurd, thankfully, being near the average for American tanks with its 339 meters base concealment. But again, these stats are taken directly from its Type 64 chassis brother, despite being a tier higher. So if you're fond of American light tanks, then you'll like this one in terms of its camo and spotting capabilities too. So overall, is the Duster any good? Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun too, honestly. I really like how unique this tank is and how it stands out amongst other auto-loading light tanks. That does come with a concern, however. With the high DPM and virtual lack of reload, it makes me wish the reload was just a bit longer. Maybe like 3.5 seconds to even 4 seconds long. That's still short enough to keep its identity of a quick-firing clip-based tank, but lowers the DPM to a more respectable value, while still being able to be bettered by food and rapid loading to better the reload in the first place. The 2 second space just feels too quick for its own good. I was thinking this tank needs a downtime period like most autoloaders to give the enemy a chance to push you while you're on the reload, but then that would mean it needs a higher clip size with potentially a different incher-clip value too to balance that thing out. Instead, I like how it is now and feels it's just the reload that needs to be a tad bit longer is all. I think the pen value is perfect, the damage and clip potential is perfect, the HP is fine too in my eyes, it's just the relentlessness of the gun that I'd tweak. Oh, and I'd make it 370 meters base view range too. It's not a light tank at heart, and thus that should be reflected in its spotting capabilities, I feel. And I'm not even saying that because it's just an anti-air tank. Although that is one of the reasons why I would give it 370, I say that because of its gun that easily takes out other light tanks. Thus, I think it should struggle to compete with the lights in the lights game of spotting too. You could better the camo by 10 meters too if you'd like, since we're taking away 20 meters of view range. There's only a few issues I'd touch up to make it perfect, and I've already said those, but it's a lot of fun to play, and doesn't see tier 10, which is also another bonus I should mention. I enjoyed my games with this tank, and it was definitely a breath of fresh air too. Now before we get into the games, let's go over my setup. The tank is an open top autoloader, meaning you cannot run ventilation or a gun rammer, so the setup is honestly pretty easy to choose. Optics, camo net, and vert stabs. For consumables, I went with my usual premium repair kit, food rations, and standard med kit, and my commander ran with my usual light tank perks with 6th sense, situational awareness, camo expertise, rapid loading, steady aim, born leader, snapshot, run and gun, and designated target. Now let's get into the games. We'll start here on Sunset Coast, and you'll see immediately there's 5 M42 Dusters per team. Now this was something that was not too common, but was pretty common at the same time during the first week of the season where the M42 Dusters were released. You'd get a lot per team, a lot per side, and what can you really do when there's that many light tanks vibing for the same job that you're going to try to do yourself? Like, what can you do, really? Here I'm just, I guess, shooting to see how quick the reload is. I can't remember how many games I've played before this one. By the way, the camo on the tank, if you aren't aware, this is the one for completing all 6 seasons from last year. So this is your Celebrations skin reward. You might have gotten it actually for completing 5. I'm not so sure, but I know there might have been multiple camos, but this was one of them, and I actually kind of like it. I like the yellows, I like the reds. I think it's better than last year's, which was green and gray. Anyway, what can you really do when there's 5 other light tanks on the enemy team, 4 other light tanks that are the same as you on your team? You just wait for them to kill each other, right? Sort of sit back and let them do the initial fighting so that you can clean up the scraps then, and then get to play the game yourself, right? Here the gun depression is sort of hurting me there. I have to push out a little bit more than I wanted to. And I did kind of take that, I suppose, because even though he had just dumped his clip, I'm not going to drive out in front of him quicker than he can reload. You know what I mean? To dump my clip. But you got to get what you can get whenever you can, right? Here's another instance of the gun depression just wasn't working. Also, 120 millimeters of penetration. I really don't know why I thought I could pen the T1 LP7 so easily like that, but we tried. We're still trying. 13 to 13, and already you were hearing our base being capped. Look at the way the team's set up now. We're all in the north. We've given them our cap circle. They've pushed across. So what can I do? Well, I'm going to push over here down the B line as far as I can to spot the stuff in the back. So hopefully my team takes them out and we can start getting some actual advantage on this side of the map. Since even though we're all over here, it's not secured yet. We do take one hit from the 90B, but we get rid of him. DPM output is just relentless. Bounce some shots off the side of that tank's turret. Wait for some ass shots on this guy. We only get one. Reload whenever you feel like it because you have such a quick reload. Mag dump, set him on fire. Easy, right? 1,000 damage now, 13 to 8. We've secured this area in the north. There's only one light tank remaining. And now we can start heading back to defend the base. But oh, guess what? 4 of my light tanks are already doing that. So instead of going back to the base, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to cut down the middle to do a sort of divide, cut them in half, and shoot them in the rear while they're focusing on our front, which our front isn't on the front of the map, so to speak, but instead it's down that one line with all those light tanks. Now, our light tanks are doing good work. They're getting rid of theirs. And we're going to shoot the side of this T-29. Then we're going to reload. He gets set on fire. We get to finish him off. We're reloaded already. Instead of reloading here, just shoot off our rounds. We get 2 back into the turret of that guy. I'm going to shoot a bunch, but even with 120 millimeters of pen shooting at the ass of the tanks, we'll get some random bounces and just unfortunate shots. There we put our full mag into this IS-32, or sorry, 7032. And I was trying to track him at first for track damage, but then he gave me his rear. So this is what I mean by relentless. And even though he's got a lot of HP and we're now bouncing shots because we're aiming at his engine deck rather than his rear, we still were able to put out a fair amount of damage against him at 2,600 damage. This was one of my highest damage games. And again, in these matches, I really just had to fight for my damage against other M42s while steering clear of theirs so that I don't get into a 1 versus 2 M42 battle and die because there's 2 of them shooting at me. You know what I mean? In this game, though, it's going to be more of a normal game. This was one of my later games. I know that for a fact. And what I wanted to do was get a game to showcase where I did both decent damage, but also more spotting capabilities, since it is a light tank. And so Arctic region's a good map for that. This is one of my favorite maps in the game, to be honest with you. I feel it's very good for any class. And for that, I'm going to take my light tank to my favorite light tank position. Rather than bum rushing to C3, I like to go here because I can spot the dude that might go G6 while also spotting these guys crossing. The dude's up in the sniper hill. And if I have people back at B7, they can shoot the people crossing. They can shoot the people sniper hill. If I have people A4, they can shoot the people in front of me down in the trench or the person at G7 or G6. So I like this bush a lot. But unfortunately, we just got too many people poking up from the trench on their side. So I don't want to sit there too much as the guy. If there is someone in the bush of G6, I can't sit there. So because there's 2 tanks in the trench and I didn't get to spot anything crossing, I instead move here now to see if I can spot something in the back here maybe and get some shots off. There's nothing there. G6, I'm still not getting shot at. This light tank randomly decides to come up this way. He gets a shot, or he gets shot at. Then he decides maybe he's coming for me. I don't know why. We get 2 shots into him, despite our 3 degrees of gun depression. And we're getting just easy spotting damage. This is why I love this map so much. You don't see a lot of people go here, but these bushes here are phenomenal to use and play with. And you just get to see so much of the enemy's positions from here as well. ARL's not visible for me, but that's fine. Just waiting to see if these guys want to push up from the trench and get more shots in from my teammates. Also, if anything's going to pop back up on their sniper hill. Since nothing's happening, I decided maybe come back here again and try this poke again, since maybe the SP1C won't do that again. And maybe something will be up in the sniper hill this time. And yes, there's 2 things. We'll actually get some shots off. That's a stock Tiger 1. Since he fired, I know I can reload before him and get a few rounds out. We gave ourselves 400 damage now. Unfortunately, nothing shot at them, though. We didn't get any more spotting for poking up those 2 tanks up in their sniper hill. And now I realize, too, that we're losing the right side of the map. Here we get some nasty shots into his cupola. 120 millimeters of penetration is enough to go through his cupola even at distance with AP rounds and easily secure the kill after getting some spotting damage actually for lighting him up in the first place. 2 artillery here. Our light tank died. What do I want to do? Well, I'm thinking I want to get A9, but then I decide maybe not, because it's team destruction. It's not standard battle. And I only realized that at that moment. It looked like I was going to go back to try and spot for the arty and maybe defend the base. But at that moment I realized there is no base for me to defend. So instead, push with the team, get rid of some of their targets, and maybe spot across here for some spawning damage. Or, now I'm realizing the enemy team's pushing far from the ridge that they would be sniping from on the F9 position, and now actually giving me a flanking potential. If I spot anything coming up here to my right, they should be shootable by my team. My team's actually in the trench, which tells me there's probably nothing up in their sniper hill. And so I'm going to try and play this position. I soon realized, though, maybe I don't want to go towards these guys by myself because they still have an ARL in the back. And there is something up on the sniper hill. So instead, I'm going to isolate the 244 that's in front of me here. Maybe get some shots off on this guy. Vert stabs gave me 1 shot. That's fine. We're up to 1,700 spotting damage now. I'm not even sure how I really did that. ARL probably took a lot of hits. Things over here that I said I would spot probably took a lot of hits. I want to take out these arties now, but I forgot about the 244 in this moment. Now I realize, oh, I should probably circle him, right? Auto lock gets 3 to bounce. Shooting a few more. Our turret traverse speed's not as good as our turn traverse speed, which means we missed a lot of shots. I realize here, auto locking on his engine deck is only going to give me bounces, so I need to start aiming. And then I realize I'm being rushed by artillery, and he hits his shot, so I need to leave. Unfortunately, it's a Burt, so he's got really good DPM too, and a lot of HP to deal with. Luckily, he shoots the rock, and I know for a fact that I should be able to take him out. Thank Christ. We do get shot by something over there. It is a Cromwell, which means he's got good DPM. He's put 2 rounds into me now. We would be dead if we were any other light tank, by the way. Say we were in a Lycan with 840 HP, we'd be dead now. And, you know, we'd have to worry about our reload speed, having to find cover while reloading. But we wouldn't really have to worry about penning as much as we have. But we've survived, and we've done 2,100 spotting, 1,800 damage. Arty came running at us. It's fine, though. The only 2 tanks left alive are artillery and the Cromwell, which now, since I know where he is, I'm going to try and spot him up. Arty's being pushed, so there's no need to go over for him. Do take some shots off just to see if we hit anything, and then, well, guess what happens? The Cromwell jumps off. How rude. But that was my favorite game in it because it felt like I had many opportunities to do different things, and I got to utilize the tank to its fullest, really. I got to do 2,100 spotting damage, and I did a decent amount of actual damage. Only a first class, though, but that's fine. I wasn't really trying to ace this vehicle as it's a tier 7, and I didn't want to play it too much, but like I said earlier, it's kind of a lot of fun. I do think the reload needs to be just a bit longer. I don't want it to be like an actual lengthy reload, but with the ability to better the reload, having 4,400 base DPM is already enough. And so if you make the reload just a little bit longer, and you can still better that reload, of course, it would just make the tank feel a bit more fair, as right now it feels just a bit strong. It's not like overpowered, just a bit strong. And like I said, it's a lot of fun. Anyway, it might be a controversial take with what I said earlier about anti-air tanks being in the game, but I'm willing to get berated by you in the comments if you disagree with me. If not, though, pick up the Duster if you haven't. I'm not sure about the VADs as I don't play Cold War, but I think the Duster's a lot of fun and worthwhile. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.